Good evening, everyone. You join me here at our studios live in London, and I'm Adrian here on the Adrian Show. And tonight we will be talking about a variety of issues facing the nation presently. So, first off, let's address the elephant in the room. The government was unable to pass its own budget at the Commons last evening. There was a legislative session in the House of Commons for all of the members of Parliament to attend, of course, and the government put forward its budget, and it failed spectacularly. I believe it was 19 noes and 14 or 15 ayes. So it absolutely failed, and crikey, I can see why. Let's have a look at the budget then. 800 Robux of that budget, which was meant for the United Kingdom, was going to be siphoned off into foreign investment. That is right, folks. Trade deals going to foreigners, not the British people. This does not incentivise activity in the United Kingdom in any way, shape, or form. So why the Chancellor thought it would be a good idea to even suggest putting the Robux into any foreign nation is completely beyond me. This will not bring activity to the United Kingdom. The activity is already dying here. Westbridge is in despair. The Social Democrats have already killed Northern Ireland just weeks into gaining office. And they decide to spend our Robux and outsource our activity to foreign nations. Well, if that doesn't scream that this government doesn't care about this country, I don't know what does. It is absolutely shocking what the Social Democrats were trying to do in that budget. It's 800 Robux, mind you. That is 800 Robux that could have gone elsewhere, such as British business, which is of course failing. I don't think there was quite enough Robux put in there that was going to benefit British business. There were rewards, there were grant schemes. I will, grant the government that, but why are we putting 800 Robux into the pockets of foreigners? That doesn't make any sense to me. Now, the argument was that I've heard from the Chancellor, Noah Finsby, and he said, this is going to mutually benefit the UK. We will give them Robux and they will invest Robux into our country. So, just to clarify here, we're giving them Robux to give us Robux? Well, that doesn't make any sense to me. And what would we do with the Robux that we then get back? It just seems like a bit of a waste of time to me. So what would you do with that then? That doesn't make any sense. The other proposal was the other sort of argument for it was, we can register our own businesses here in other countries. Well, we're just outsourcing the activity of our own businesses here to other nations. We're going to lose activity. We're going to lose businesses to other nations. That's absurd. It's absolutely ludicrous. And then for what? To import substandard, crappy companies nobody wants to work for into this country. I don't think that is a good idea at all. I mean, there's already a huge amount of congestion on the infrastructure available for businesses within the United Kingdom, and I'm sure there's plenty of people here who would love to register their own business. So why do we need foreigners to add to the problem? That makes no bloody sense to me. And that is why I can confidently say that the Four Star Party and the National Party and the Greg's Party all managed to vote against this awful budget. Now, the government here, who have their confidence and supply agreement with the Solidarity Party, who we'll get more into in a little bit later on, and of course, like the whopping four unionist seats, could still not pass their own budget, and it wasn't even a close one either. We won by a landslide on declining that budget. Half the MPs weren't even there for that, and the attendance slowly dropped off as the session went on, but they managed to rally 13 government MPs, that's including Unionist and Social Democrat, by the way, 13 MPs for the budget debate. Now that is absolutely shocking that they could not even pass their own budget, but quite frankly I can see why, because it was absolutely crap and shit and useless. We do not need to be spending 800 Robux on those outside of our great nation. So that is why I propose that this Robux be instead invested into the Home Office and into the actual British businesses within the Treasury, not foreign investment at all. Now that is the main area of criticism for the budget, but it was not just that the budget was sending all this money elsewhere, as myself spoke about in Parliament and others from the other opposition parties, or that was the main area to criticise. But the other area of criticism that the budget received was that none of the opposition parties were consulted about it in good time before the session. We were the Four Star Party. We were given the budget 1 hour before the session, and the Greg's party, I believe it was only a few days beforehand, and all of their criticisms were sort of ignored from what I can gather. The National Party, I mean, if you think our situation, the Four Star Party, of only getting it 1 hour before the session, folks, was bad, just wait to hear when the Nationals got it. They got it 15 minutes before Parliament assembled. And you may be asking, why does it matter what the opposition thinks? They are not elected into government, or they have not formed government, so the government should be passing this. But let's not forget, this is a minority government. They don't have a particularly strong mandate there. They need all the support they can get from the opposition benches, and that's why they have that confidence and supply agreement with the Solidarity Party. But when your own turnout to sessions is pretty shocking, then you should be seeking to at least try and win over the support of the other parties. And look, elements of the budget weren't that bad. There were elements in there that I actually agreed with and thought were good ideas, such as putting more money into the Home Office. But that part there of sending 800 Robux into the pockets of other nations is absolutely beyond me, and absolutely beyond anyone else with a brain. And hopefully I will fight for to make sure that pledge there does not go ahead. I will do everything in my power to make sure that not a penny of this nation's Robux goes into the pockets of those outside of our glorious nation in the United Kingdom. Now, moving on to other bits and pieces of failed government legislation. Yes, I know it's not just the budget, folks. We do not stop there. Oh, no. Only one of the government's bills actually passed Parliament yesterday. And even then, it was kind of just a filler bill, honestly. No one was really passing it enthusiastically. It was just sort of, okay, that's just, okay. There was nothing particularly special about it. It was not as not a particularly special bill at all. It was just a filler bill. I think it was something to do with the Commonwealth, I believe. It's trying to incentivise that a bit more, but no one really cares about that. It's just kind of, it's not really going to benefit anyone, but it's not really going to disadvantage anyone. So there was a few abstains on that. But I mean, it passed, so I mean, fair enough. But what act also failed the Commons? Well, we also had the UK Borders Bill, which was put forward by the Prime Minister. And my party's criticisms were sort of announced by Robert, of course, who gave a little speech, and had noticed two main areas of criticism within the bill. So first and foremost, it was referencing Metropolitan Police officers. I'm not quite sure why the Metropolitan Police are having powers in Northern Ireland is sort of the line that Robert went along with there. Although apparently they do sort of do stuff over there occasionally as a last resort. So that was sort of the Prime Minister's response to that. My party's other criticism, which I also voiced because the Prime Minister just completely blanked him on that area, or sort of didn't really kind of answer it particularly well, was that in the bill, it mandated that police officers and soldiers would have to warn people, before opening fire. Now, that's absolutely retarded, folks. I don't know where these people get these ideas for. You have to warn people before you shoot them. Wow. Now, for anyone that thinks, oh, well, it's probably a good idea to get warnings, and your party's asking for warnings in Parliament, well, this is a little bit different because this is a bit of a life and death situation, folks. For anyone that hasn't been in Bath or the police service on a deployment to Northern Ireland on the border, it's absolutely chaotic and people die left, right and centre. There's attacks left, right and centre, and quick decisions need to be made. You do not have the bloody time to be going, hello mate, yeah, you're trying to shoot me, well I'm just going to give you a warning for that, mate. Don't try and shoot me or otherwise I'll shoot you and you're dead. Yeah, that's just stupid. Honestly, it needs to be made very clear in this piece of legislation that warnings, in the case of a immediate threat to life, should be, ignored, or there's no, or I'm trying to think of the wording I used the other day. There should be a piece of wording in that legislation that states that in the case of emergency, you shouldn't have to issue warnings. You can just bypass that. You can just, if you're gonna die, you shoot them, no warnings there, and it needs to be written in the law very, very clearly that that is protected. Now, the Prime Minister did say there was something in there that sort of loosely did that, but my concern is it is not strongly written enough. All it takes is one sort of woke lefty Irish politician to take this person to court with a good lawyer, and then they can argue, oh, this bit of wording here, it states that, this person here, I don't think this quite counts as that sort of situation. And then before you know it, you've got a British soldier or police officer being prosecuted for just doing their job. And I don't think this legislation protects them enough. So thankfully that has failed, and when it gets reproposed, hopefully we will see steps to improve that area there. So what other bills did fail the Commons? I think the last one was the, from the government at least, there were some other bills as well proposed by sort of speakers and opposition members. In fact, there was a 4-star bill. There was the Deputy Speaker proposing an amendment to standing orders. Quite a good amendment, I think. And then our very own OSEX here from the 4-star party also proposed a bill as sorts to change the standing orders. Well, not really a bill, it's just a standing orders amendment rather, because obviously it's kind of its own little thing there. But yes, moving on anyway, back to the Parliament Act. So if I recall correctly, this act wanted to impose a sort of body that would keep sort of transcripts and publish transcripts of parliamentary events. Now, yeah, there's no point for this, honestly. I mean, who in their right mind is going to read through all of the writings of Parliament, right? The only time that someone would ever want to go through a transcript is if something had happened, and we'll talk about that in a little bit because there was an incident at. Actually, I'll mention it now. So this is going back a few days to Friday, Minister's Questions. The Deputy Speaker made a completely unintentional error here. Has since handled it very professionally, and I have a lot of respect to him for doing that. However, completely accidental. there was, it was quite a chaotic sitting. There were members wandering about, most notably the Solidarity leader, Scripted Zach, who we'll talk a little bit about later on, as there's quite a few developments there. But he was just wandering around the Parliament, House of Commons rather, just strutting about, and he got removed for it. And then later on, the Right-On, who is of course the leader of the National Party, started spamming this little emoji of a man climbing a mountain in like the new mic tool we've got in Parliament for people to speak with, so that their text appears on screen. So he just started spamming like an emoji in there. And then the Deputy Speaker removed Davis, of course, from the Four Star Party, who had just been sort of sat there quietly, gave his little speech, and then sat down again. And we were completely shocked as to why this was going on. So there was a little 4-star walkout. All of us MPs left Parliament. However, we resolved this with the Deputy Speaker afterwards, and no issues there. Had all the sort of disciplinary actions revoked and everything, which is great news. But basically, this was resolved because a transcript of the text in-game was kept. And it literally took about, they literally just had to like, I don't know how they did it, it was like on a document thing. I'm assuming they've got some sort of scripting in there that just records it all and then puts it into a little document or something, I'm not sure. But it was straightforward. You do not need an entire government department to do that. Like, what else are you going to publish in there? You don't need to employ like 10 people to go and do that. We don't need more bureaucracy. We don't need more civil servants. The people of this country don't want civil servants. They want change. They want action. They want the government to do things, not implement civil servants, not implement democracy, and not do any of that. Which is why it was, I mean, it's not, going to drastically disaffect anyone. It's just a waste of government's time putting this into, law, and it's just stupid. So thankfully that bill also got turned down, meaning only one out of the 4 bills that the government put forward actually made it past the Commons, and then the Lords decided to suspend their business to next week, because there's no point in sitting there for 10 minutes just to discuss one relatively minor filler bill, which I don't even think anyone spoke about in the Commons. It just sort of was like, yeah, okay, fine, whatever, we'll just pass this. I didn't even read it before we went into the Commons, if I'm honest. It was one of the few ones I didn't actually have a look at. I had a look at the other ones, but not that one. It just didn't really seem that relevant. But yeah, anyway, so that was all of the Commons drama. I am also getting millions of DMs at the moment for people asking to come on. I usually arrange people coming on in advance for these, so it will literally just be me speaking for tonight. But yeah. Going on to the next topic of discussion, we have the Solidarity Party. Where do I even begin? Right, okay, so the Solidarity Party, led by the infamous Scripted Zach, has been undergoing a large amount of public criticism lately. Now, we're going to go right back here, back to the general election, of course, when that all happened. The day following Zach's policy document being released, the election happens, Solidarity get 6 seats. And then it was sort of, it was decided, the 4-star party were invited to negotiations for a potential coalition or confidence and supply agreement. We decided to opt out of any formal confidence and supply agreement, but sort of said, if the government implements the changes we want into their King's Speech and drops some of the filler out of it, we will approve it. So that was sort of that unofficial agreement there, entirely subjective as to what they would actually do in that. As obviously, we just had another general election, it's Christmas, we don't want another one. So that would make more sense to do that from our perspective, and also gives us time to sort of rebuild, ready for the next election. put policies together, etc., etc. So that was the logic behind that. The Solidarity Party decided to enter a formal supply confidence and supply agreement for some reason. And across that day, we've been working quite well with Solidarity Party, so a little communications group chat was established between the Four Star Party and the Solidarity Party. Um, we'd spoken to them on a number of issues, but it usually ended up in us trolling them with like a merger agreement. It started off as trolling. At this rate, it might be their only hope, because they were looking like potential people we could work with in Parliament. Obviously, excusing the retardation of some of them. But we very much had them in our pockets, to say the least. It was Four-Star were sort of controlling, which is quite funny because they have more seats than us. But we were sort of pulling the strings there a little bit. But yeah, so we did troll them with this merger thing, and they took it so seriously. It was quite funny because apparently all their meetings just ended up being Zach yelling at his MPs and his party leadership. That is what I'd been told by numerous people, which is quite funny. So basically, if you want to know what the Solidarity Party's like, imagine like a group of like 14 and 15-year-olds being shouted at by scripted Zach. That's basically your average Solidarity Party meeting. And then yeah, so we were just sort of trolling with them with that. When it came to the King's speech, we said we'd either nay it or that there would either be one of two options. Either Jam would have to step down as chairman of the Social Democrats and resign all of his ministerial positions, or scripted Zach would have to publish a opinion poll on a potential merger with the Four-Star Party, and that was the option that was chosen, so that they could have our confidence in that King's speech. Now Zach decided to stick this so that people. He decided to rig the vote by telling people not to vote in favour of the merger agreement and to vote against it, and then it was just sort of like a little setup thing. But then he sort of cropped this out of the images that he sent us, so we're not too happy about the fact he rigged it. There was also at one point allegations of him not actually putting it somewhere where people could see it, but I can't remember if that turned out to be true or not, as to whether it was a public channel or just a limited one. So that was that incident, and then yeah, just going forwards, we found that the situation there really is deteriorating. It's awful. The standards the people within that party have been facing. It's one of the most divided parties I've ever seen. And I think it's sort of climaxed really when they ejected Polyscrim, or he tried to fire Polyscrim from his party, which he was unsuccessful in doing because he had no mandate to do so. It was proven unconstitutional, and so I think he was sort of forced in to be kept by the EC, since they had sort of fired him for telling stuff to us that he'd already said after he'd been fired, which kind of makes no sense, but that's the point, right? They make no sense. So they tried to sort of get rid of him, but they couldn't. Then they tried to sort of block him from the party board elections, but they couldn't. The EC stepped in and handled all of that. And then he was going to be sort of a Solidarity MP, but sit more sort of independently. Although we've recently just seen him resign his seat completely, and leave the Solidarity Party entirely. He is an individual I would like to have an interview with at some point on the show, so I'll hopefully get around to arranging that to sort of see what's actually going on behind the scenes in Solidarity. But that's the issue that they've been facing there for a while. Is they're just so divided, and Zach treats them pretty badly from what I can gather. And then we've also seen Blair, their party chairman, who was quite prominent, also quite prominent in negotiations between the Four-Star Party and the Solidarity Party. And he's just resigned the other day as well, completely unhappy with what Zach has been doing over there. again, another individual I'm sure I'd love to interview at some point. But for anyone that was on Newscast yesterday with BBC will have heard a lot about that from his perspective. But yeah, he's decided to resign, so they've lost him, they've lost Polyscrim, and this is all within hours, by the way. Today, who else have they lost? They lost someone else. I cannot for the life of me remember. It was a board member. Let me find it. It was in there. General News. It was. No, I can't see it, but they lost a board member. I'm pretty sure I saw somewhere. Yeah, their chairman Blair has defected to the Unionist Party, which I think is quite an odd move because he described his move, like the reasons for his move yesterday on Newscast, as basically all of the issues that the Unionist Party is also facing. Divisions, people not being happy with policy, people being unhappy with the leader. All the issues we're seeing in the Unionists at the moment with their recent resignations, such as, Jaden, who was their deputy leader, mind you, and one of their secretaries, I believe the Home Secretary he was, has resigned, and then obviously their Transport Secretary resigned as well. So there's definitely splits within the Unionist Party, and they seem to be in the exact same boat as their Solidarity Party. So I don't know why Blair has gone there, and it's also just a dying party that it needs to be put into the grave, quite frankly. So yeah, I think if any party gets deregistered at any point, it's probably either Solidarity or Unionist, because they're they're for the streets. They're just, it's done. The game's over. It keeps getting worse and worse, especially with the Solidarity Party. Every single day they seem to hit a new low. And the latest low has been today with Scripted Zach being banned from the UK server. Now, there was guidance from the EC saying not to sort of politicise this, but I will just announce it there as news. Anyway, he has been banned from the UK server, meaning he will no longer have access to everything in here. Now, the EC has allowed him to stay on as party leader, because it's only been a server ban rather than an outright what's it without an outright UK ban. Sorry. So he will remain as Solidarity leader, and I believe in a statement he said that he would stay on for the next sort of half of the term, and then sort of reassess the situation there as to whether it would be best for his party's interest to either step down or continue. So yeah, there's that that little update there from today as to the Solidarity Party's gradual decline we've been seeing, and it, like I said, it seems to get worse and worse, which is kind of a shame, because I had hoped that my party would be able to work quite closely with the Solidarity Party, seeing as we generally seem to get on quite well with Scripted Zach. But unfortunately, a lot of the disalignment there and internal struggles, and I think the way incidents are handled there has just completely brought that party into complete and utter disrepute. And many of the other parties within Westminster don't really take them that seriously anymore either. So it's not just myself that has that view, it's pretty much all of Westminster beginning to form that opinion. So yeah, that's sort of where things are with that from my perspective at the moment. They also decided to pass the government's stupid budget for some reason yesterday, which obviously failed. I don't know if that's just because they're obligated to do so with their confidence and supply agreement, or as to whether or not they just felt like doing it because for some reason they thought it would be a great idea to send Robux into the pockets of the foreign businesses and so on. Although that said, they did want to implement the European Union in their policy document, so to speak. So I don't know, maybe they're sort of like globalists or something. I have no idea, honestly. But quite frankly, as I said earlier, no money should be going outside of this country. But there we go. That's sort of the solidarity talks about, and that is also the budget and the government bills they've been trying to pass talked about as well. We've touched briefly on the Unionist Party, but just to go back there, I mean, they're in a similar spot to the Solidarity Party at the moment. They've had so many resignations lately. You've seen Jaden leaving, who was their deputy leader, former leader of the party, by the way, as well, having left, and obviously serving as their Home Secretary. He's resigned from his spot. The other casualty we saw was, I believe it was AVB or something like that. He was their transport secretary, again, unhappy with the coalition. And going back to Jaden, what he found was that his own unionist cabinet colleagues were the ones sort of blocking himself trying to do his job as the Home Secretary. It wasn't even the other party that he was trying to work with, it was his own party that were causing problems there, which is why he left. And ABB again as well was disapproving of the coalition, didn't agree with it, thought it would make the party weak, which it absolutely has done, and will continue to do so, hence his departure. And again, the other casualty as well is, of course, the one and only Hemswright. He was one of their MPs and their graphics guy, doing all of the graphics for the Unionist Party, which they still recycled despite his departure, which is quite funny. I mean, the latest one from about blur affecting is literally just a copy of one of his graphics about something else he did a while ago. I believe it was one of Michael or something, just attacking him. So that's quite funny as well. But yeah, Hemswright, I can confirm, has defected to the Four-Star Party and is being made sort of a policy advisor. I think he's just been appointed campaign director, if I recall correctly. Yeah, there we go. I just verifying that he is the campaign director of the Four-Star Party now. So good to have him with the team, definitely. But again, he was another huge loss for the Unionist Party, having done all their graphics for them and everything, and having been an MP previously for them as well. So that's three big casualties that they've lost recently, as well as, of course, as many voters seen their ever-decreasing seat share, having been one of the largest parties of British politics and being the vehicle for TBU, who ended up being the longest serving Prime Minister within the United Kingdom's history, I do believe, if I recall correctly. I mean, he was a Unionist leader and Prime Minister for a long time, or sort of here and there. And now here it is. It's absolutely tiny and is decreasing in vote share every election. And again, suffered an absolute wipeout at the Northern Irish elections with its Northern Irish branch, with the Greg's Party branch that's just been set up, absolutely obliterating them, with Edward Molyneux being elected as the mayor for Middletown. So yeah, I think I think the Unionist Party's dead. I think the Solidarity Party is beyond dead. So I'm not entirely sure why Blair decided to jump ship from a sinking ship to a sunk ship. But there we go. I think that's all the main points I wanted to discuss, really. I mean, the budget's the main area. I also do find it quite funny how they're all for attacking people, but you cannot bring these government MPs on to interview people, as it seems that the only Social Democrat capable of speaking in voice chat is Callum. Maybe they're all like non-verbal or something. I don't know what's going on there, but speaking of Callum, whilst I remember Callum, Callum seems to be our Prime Minister at the moment. So, as we all know, Sonnesance is quite frankly the weakest Prime Minister this nation has ever seen. And Callum is the one really running things behind the show, if I'm honest. Sonnesance, she comes to Parliament, she yaps for about 3 hours, everyone falls asleep, and then she proposes some shitty bill that everyone declines. But beyond that, she doesn't really do anything. The person doing it all, pulling the strings, from my experiences so far, has been Callum. When it came to liaising with the Social Democrats over their King's speech to implement what we wanted to implement and scrap what we wanted to scrap, in order to for them to win the sort of confidence of the Four-Star Party and their King's speech, the one handling all the negotiations was Callum. Sonnesence and Jam were present for some of it, but not speaking, of course, because they're mute and non-verbal. But yeah, Callum was the one. Even then, they weren't really typing much either. Jam was, but he on some things. I don't know what he was trying to say there. It was like kind of waffle about legal stuff and his stupid filler policies that we ended up getting scrapped, such as removing commas and putting full stops in other locations, so that he can put his signature on it and look like a good little career politician to get his peerage. So we managed to scrap that because we're not wasting government time on making career politicians enter the House of Lords. We're here, obviously, we're not the government, but we want whatever government there is to at least try and serve the British people, and we will do everything we can to force it to do that. But yeah, anyway, getting back to the point, the one handling the discussions there really was Callum, the one who appears on the BBC to talk about the Social Democrats and the government is Callum. He is really their main man at the minute, and is very much clearly eyeing up leadership, having previously been leader and prime minister before with the Social Democrats. I think it's quite clear to me that we're likely to see Callum try and take over the party the minute Sonnesence, has reaches the end of her time as prime minister and leader of the Social Democrats, which, I mean, it's guaranteed to happen at some point or another. I don't know when, but with weak leadership like that, she's not built to last, shall we say? She's going at some point. So I think we're likely to see Callum step in there, as he's already pretty much running everything anyway. And bearing in mind as well, he's just a backbencher MP as far as I'm aware. I think he's a Downing Street Chief of Staff or something like that as well. I'm not sure, but he's not even a front. He's not in any cabinet role or anything. He's just a backbencher as far as I'm aware, and he's running the show. So there we go. So that is the state of the Social Democrats as well, reported on, and a little bit of. Might as well talk about the Greg's party whilst we're sort of talking about potential future leaders. I'm not really going to go into too much detail because I mean, they're not in government currently, thank God, and we managed to get them out of there. Yeah, looking at the Greg's party, I think it's quite obvious that Chocolate seems to be set up to take over the mantle from Michael once he leaves. I mean, I think Michael, I don't know when he's going to leave, but I think it's quite obvious that Chocolate seems to be taking on increased responsibilities there. Making more of a public appearance. Has been leading the Commons quite a lot lately for the opposition benches. So he's taking quite an active role within Parliament, and is also taking quite an active role within their party as well. I believe he's just been appointed deputy leader, if I do recall correctly. So I think we're quite likely to see him as the next face of the Greg's party whenever Michael decides to retire. But again, I have no idea when that's going to happen. He's not in quite as bad as a situation as Sonnesence or Scripted Zach are currently, or even Camdux, quite frankly. But yeah, anyway, so that's all of the affairs that I wanted to talk about here today, summed up on the show. Thank you all for tuning in, of course. I do have some exciting news about WilliamsTV before I do end off, however. So we are looking to expand the range of programs available on here. So do watch this space, including bringing on some new faces onto the channel as well. There's currently 2 programs that are sort of being talked about behind the scenes, so watch this space. Obviously, those who know, which I think they're watching anyway. But yes, do watch this space. It is developing, and watch the appearance of the company change as well. I'll give a little teaser for that as well. There are upcoming visual changes you can expect to see, which is all very exciting. More will be talked about later, but there's a little bit of apprehension there, so you're all aware as to where things are going. WilliamsTV is very much growing with things, which is great. Also, I'm hoping to get a couple of interviews in at the minute as well. I need to discuss those with the relevant people, but a lot's going on in the world of politics, which is great news because it means I have a lot to talk about. So yeah, there we go. Thank you all very much for watching tonight's rendition of the show. We've had really good viewership tonight as well, which has been great. Thank you all for tuning in. And with that, I shall see you all next time. Goodbye now.